is on the road again. I just can't wait to get on the road again.
1980 was a golden year for country music. The genre was experiencing a crossover explosion, with country artists topping pop charts and reaching audiences who had never listened to a steel guitar before.
In all the wrong places, looking for love, too many faces.
Nashville was producing hits that resonated far beyond its traditional boundaries. The songs from this year captured heartbreak, honky-tonk nights, and the real lives of working people.
It comes out, and have you ever seen one of these?
Well, I did more than that. I was doing a radio show in Los Angeles called Mark and Brian.
They told stories that mattered to folks who felt ignored by mainstream pop. These weren't just catchy tunes. They were anthems for everyday Americans.
My brother said, Tommy, son, my life is over.
These are the top 10 country songs from 1980 that we'll never forget. Grab your boots and let's ride. 10. Lookin' for Love. Johnny Lee became a star overnight when Lookin' for Love appeared in the movie Urban Cowboy.
Looking for love in too many faces, searching their eyes, looking for traces.
And captured exactly what millions of people were feeling. The song described searching for romance in all the wrong places, mistaking physical attraction for genuine connection until real love finally appeared. Everyone who ever wasted time on the wrong person understood immediately. The track rode the mechanical bull craze that Urban Cowboy sparked across America.
Bless the day I discover another heart, looking for love.
Suddenly, country music was cool in places that had never played a Merle Haggard record. Lee's earnest delivery made the somewhat simple lyrics feel profound and personal to listeners who had lived through similar romantic disappointments.
In fact, I don't know why they never did come back out. Well, I think the Urban Cowboy soundtrack is one of the best albums ever recorded.
Lookin' for Love climbed to #1 on the country charts and crossed over to #5 on the pop charts. The song spent 3 weeks on top and established Lee as a legitimate star rather than just a movie soundtrack contributor. His voice carried the weariness of someone who had genuinely searched before finding what he needed. The Urban Cowboy moment faded, but this song remained. Those who remember the summer of 1980 can still feel the sawdust under their feet and the hope that maybe tonight would be different than all the lonely nights before. 9. Coward of the County. Kenny Rogers proved his storytelling mastery with Coward of the County.
Promise me, son, not to do the things I've done. Walk away.
A dramatic narrative about a young man named Tommy who promised his dying father he would walk away from trouble. The town called him a coward for refusing to fight. Then 3 brothers attacked his girlfriend Becky, and Tommy discovered that some promises needed to be broken. The song built tension expertly across its verses, establishing Tommy's reputation and his reasons for avoiding conflict.
I took care of Tommy, 'cause he was my brother's son.
When the assault happened, listeners felt the rage building alongside the character. The confrontation with the Gatlin boys delivered the catharsis that the entire narrative demanded. Coward of the County reached #1 on both country and pop charts, becoming one of the biggest crossover hits in country history. Rogers later starred in a television movie based on the song, expanding the story into a full dramatic production.
And rightfully so. You go in and you sing your songs and they sit very quietly to the end, but then they really respond at the end.
The track demonstrated that country music could handle complex moral territory. The debate about violence and honor and when peaceful men must fight resonated deeply with audiences. Rogers gave them a hero who didn't want to be one, but became one anyway when it mattered most. 8. My Heart. Ronnie Millsap delivered pure emotion with My Heart. In 1980.
Go out at night, there'll be no time for your memory.
A tender ballad about giving everything to love without reservation or protection. The blind singer's voice carried vulnerability that made every word land with devastating impact. Nobody could sell heartfelt romance quite like Millsap when he committed fully to the material. The production was smooth and polished.
Oh, my heart still belongs to you.
Characteristic of the country-politan sound that Millsap had helped pioneer throughout the 70s. Strings and keyboards surrounded his vocal without overwhelming it. The arrangement knew when to swell and when to pull back, letting the emotion breathe naturally. My Heart topped the country charts and showcased why Millsap remained one of Nashville's most consistent hitmakers. His crossover appeal brought country music to audiences who might otherwise never tune in to WSM or listen to the Grand Ole Opry. The song represented everything the Nashville sound was trying to accomplish. Millsap's catalog is filled with memorable recordings.
I got to tell you, it was beautiful, and I guess that's one thing about not being able to see. You know, the magic, when it happens, it knows no color.
But this one captured a specific tenderness that stood apart. Those who fell in love in 1980 remember this song playing during moments that defined their relationships for decades to come. 7. He Stopped Loving Her Today. George Jones recorded what many consider the greatest country song ever written with He Stopped Loving Her Today.
Hoping she'd come back again.
The track told the story of a man who never stopped loving a woman who left him years ago. He kept her picture on his wall and her memory in his heart until the day he died. He finally stopped loving her when they placed him in the ground. The song almost didn't happen. Jones was struggling with personal demons and had to be coaxed into recording it over multiple sessions. Producer Billy Sherrill recognized the potential and refused to give up until they captured the definitive performance. That patience paid off beyond anyone's expectations.
Every single high love. I want to see my...
He Stopped Loving Her Today spent 18 weeks at #1 and won virtually every award available to country music. The Country Music Association named it Song of the Year for 2 consecutive years. Critics and fans agreed that nothing else touched its emotional power. Jones had been famous for decades, but this song elevated him to legendary status. The pain in his voice felt earned by a life of hard living and harder losses. Some songs transcend their genre entirely and become part of American cultural heritage. 6. Stand By Me. Mickey Gilley brought Benny King's classic Stand By Me into country honored the original while claiming it for Nashville audiences. The Urban Cowboy soundtrack needed a romantic anchor, and Gilley provided exactly that. His piano-driven arrangement gave the familiar melody a honky-tonk twist that felt both fresh and respectful. Gilley was a natural fit for the movie since his actual Houston nightclub served as the filming location. He wasn't just a soundtrack contributor, he was part of the story itself. That authenticity translated into performances that felt connected to real places and real people, rather than Hollywood fabrication. Stand By Me reached #1 on the country charts and crossed over successfully to pop artists could interpret classic material without losing their identity or betraying their roots. The song became permanently associated with the urban cowboy phenomenon and the brief moment when mechanical bulls appeared in bars across suburban America. Gilley's version stands alone as a legitimate country classic rather than just a cover. 5. On the Road Again. Willie Nelson captured the touring musician's life perfectly with On the Road Again, a joyful celebration of endless highways and the freedom of never staying in one place too long.
On the road again, like a band of gypsies, we go down the highway.
The song appeared in the movie Honeysuckle Rose, where Willie essentially played himself, a country singer who couldn't resist the call of the next town and the next show. The arrangement was sparse and acoustic, matching Willie's distinctive outlaw image. That nylon string guitar and his nasal voice created something instantly recognizable from the first notes. The production didn't try to polish away Willie's rough edges. It embraced them as essential to his appeal. On the Road Again climbed to #1 on the country charts and reached #20 on the pop charts. The song earned an Academy Award nomination and a Grammy win. Willie had been making music for decades, but this track became his signature, the song that defined his image for mainstream audiences. The lyrics captured something universal about restlessness and belonging. Willie felt most at home when moving towards somewhere new. Millions of listeners understood that feeling even if they'd never traveled further than the next county. 4. Smoky Mountain Rain. Ronnie Millsap returned with another emotional masterpiece in Smoky Mountain Rain.
Still my eyes when I found out she was gone.
A song about a drifter hitchhiking through Tennessee rain, trying to find a woman who might not want to be found. The atmosphere was cinematic, painting pictures of wet highways and desperate longing that listeners could almost feel against their skin. The production surrounded Millsap's voice with swelling strings and dramatic arrangement that emphasized every emotional peak. The song moved from hope to doubt to resignation without ever losing its forward momentum. Each verse added depth to the journey while the chorus provided a memorable release. Smoky Mountain Rain reached #1 and became one of Millsap's most beloved recordings. The song won the Country Music Association Award for Single of the Year, cementing its status as one of 1980's most important releases. Critics praised its sophisticated production and emotional authenticity. The track showcased everything that made Millsap special. His voice conveyed vulnerability without weakness, longing without desperation. Those who drove through rainy southern nights still hear this song when the windshield wipers start their rhythm. 3. Could I Have This Dance? Anne Murray provided the romantic centerpiece of Urban Cowboy with Could I Have This Dance?
You be my partner every night.
A waltz so elegant and timeless that it immediately became a wedding reception standard. The song asked for nothing except one dance that could last forever. The request was simple, but the emotion behind it was infinite. Murray's voice was crystal clear and perfectly controlled, delivering the lyrics with warmth that made every listener feel personally invited onto the dance floor. The arrangement was understated and graceful, strings and gentle rhythms supporting rather than competing with her vocal performance. Could I Have This Dance reached #1 on the country charts and crossed over to adult contemporary audiences who recognized its universal romantic appeal. The song transcended genre boundaries because love itself has no boundaries. Anyone who ever wanted one more moment with someone special understood completely. 2. I Believe in You. Don Williams earned his Gentle Giant nickname with performances like I Believe in You.
Wrong, that north and south can't get along, that east is east and west is west.
A tender declaration of faith in another person delivered with absolute sincerity. His deep voice was warm and reassuring, the sound of someone you could trust completely with your heart and your secrets. Nobody in country music projected kindness quite like Don Williams. The production was tasteful and understated, never competing with the emotion at the song's core. Williams didn't need dramatic arrangements or flashy instrumentation. His presence was enough. The simplicity of the recording lets listeners focus entirely on the message and the messenger delivering it. I Believe in You topped the country charts and crossed over to #24 on the pop charts. The song demonstrated that quiet confidence could be just as compelling as louder, more aggressive approaches to romantic material. Williams showed that strength and tenderness could coexist beautifully. The track remained a staple of his live performances for decades. 1. Lady. Kenny Rogers reached the absolute peak of his crossover dominance with Lady in 1980.
I'm so lost in your love.
A ballad written by Lionel Richie that became one of the biggest-selling singles in country and pop history. The song was a straightforward declaration of devotion wrapped in production so lush and romantic that resistance was completely impossible. Rogers had never sounded more sincere or more commanding. Richie wrote Lady specifically for Rogers after studying his vocal style and emotional delivery. The collaboration between the country superstar and the Commodore's frontman created something that belonged to neither genre exclusively. It was simply a love song that transcended all boundaries and spoke to anyone who had ever given their heart completely to another person. The production built around Rogers' warm baritone with strings and keyboards that swelled at precisely the right moments. Nothing felt excessive or overdone. Every element served the emotional journey from quiet intimacy to passionate declaration. Richie understood exactly what Rogers needed to deliver his finest performance. Lady spent 6 weeks at #1 on the pop charts and topped the country charts as well. The song sold millions of copies worldwide and became Rogers' signature recording despite a career filled with memorable hits. Radio stations played it constantly through the fall and winter months. Weddings and anniversaries claimed it as their soundtrack immediately. And that's our countdown of unforgettable country songs from 1980. This year delivered music that still resonates with anyone who appreciates honest storytelling and genuine emotion. Which track takes you back to those honky-tonk nights? Share your memories in the comments. Smash subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.